Good morning, Toros. Welcome to another day in history. Today is November 16th, 2020, and today our lesson is over Hamilton's financial plan. We're only going to look at the first half of the lesson today, and so this is a two-part lesson. And so today's part will take care of the plan and what it was consisted of. And then tomorrow we will look at how the opposition or the issues that the plan faced. So let's get started with today's lesson. So let's look at our learning objectives for today. Students will know that a financial plan is an economic plan. The students will understand that the components of understanding the components of Alexander Hamilton's financial plan. The students will be able to explain the significance of Alexander Hamilton's financial plan by completing doodle notes and creating a Flipgrid advertisement. So these are our objectives for today. So some of the vocabulary you guys will be looking at in this um, lesson today: capitalist economy, capitalist economy, currency, currency, assume, assume, excise tax, excise tax, protective tariff, protective tariff. Okay, so we find our country at this point in a financial crisis. George Washington had many problems as president. Washington needed the help of an important man in his cabinet, his Treasury Secretary, Alexander Hamilton. Washington asked Hamilton to help solve the financial problems of the United States. The first, the United States owed millions of dollars from the American Revolution. Second, the United States was moving from a bartering economy to a capitalist economy. That's one of our vocabulary words, understanding it's bold. And a capitalist economy is an economy based on money. An economy based on money. Before we go any further, let's look at your doodle notes for today. Now I'm going to zoom in on the screen so that we can actually see the notes a little bit better. So I want to come on this first page right now, and then we'll come back and look at the second page in a little bit. So this is your doodle notes for today. So I want you to look at some of the items that you guys will be filling in. It says this is Alexander Hamilton's financial plan I believe in. So we're looking for an answer to what he believes in. I think our economy should be based on. So we know that we're looking for an answer of what he thought the economy should be based on. And it said the problems included. It said the first problem was, the second problem was. So these things are what we want to key in on in our reading. Now we just read about the problems that incurred. So what was the first problem from the reading that we incurred? And it says first, the United States owed millions of dollars from the American Revolution. So let's go back to our doodle notes. We're going to type in. So they owed millions of dollars from the American Revolution. Okay, so what was problem number two? Well, problem number two, the United States is moving from a bartering economy to a capitalist economy. A bartering economy is where people used to trade goods and services for things that they needed. So if you didn't have money, I may trade you a cow for something that you had that I needed, or I may build you something, build you some furniture for something that I need. So I'm gonna provide a product or a service to you in order to get something that you do that I need, or something that you make that I need. Okay, so we've answered those two questions. So now we're looking for, I believe in a, and I think our economy should be based on. So let's go back to our reading. So Alexander Hamilton believed in a strong government that would pay all of its debts. Hamilton also wanted to build a stable economy based on manufacturing. He presented several ideas to Congress to create a stable economy. Let's go back to our notes because I think we just found our answer because we were looking for information about what he believed in, and it's stated right here in that sentence. Alexander Hamilton believed in a strong government that would pay all its debts. So let's go back to that box. A government Go back. A strong government that would pay all its debts. He believed in a country, a government that would pay all of its debt. And what kind of economy did he want? He wanted an economy based on manufacturing. In other words, he wanted it based on business and industry. So he wanted an economy based on business and industry or manufacturing. All right, so while we're here, let's take a look at the second page of the information that we're looking at today. So we have the Hamilton's financial plan, the three key ideas. The federal government would assume state debt, and we're looking for details to explain it. The government should create a national bank. So we want to know why they wanted to create a national bank. And they would raise money on an excise tax. And how would they do that? So those are the details that we're going to be looking for in our reading today. So let's continue. And so you guys are going to answer these questions. You go through your part of the lesson today. It is a draw, so you'll just write the answers on the screen. So the first Secretary of Treasury, President Washington Secretary of Treasury Alexander Hamilton proposed in his report on public credit his plan to fix the economic crisis facing the young nation. So Revolutionary War debts. The United States had acquired 54 million in debts from the Revolutionary War, 42 million to American citizens, 12 million to foreigners. The states had 25 million more in war debts. So Hamilton's plan was devised of three major parts. One, the assumption of states' war debts by the federal government. Two, the creation of a national bank to help support the country's economy. And three, an excise tax on whiskey and protective tariffs to raise money. So let's look at that first part of his plan. The United States had bad credit. No one wanted to lend the U.S. government money. Hamilton wanted the federal government to assume or take over. It's one of our vocabulary words. Assume means to take over all the debt of the state governments. Once the debt was assumed, the federal government would pay for the debt. Once the debts were paid, that would improve the credit of the United States. And so the assumption of states' debts, many southern states had repaid all of their debts. Most indebted states were in the north. So Southerners claimed Hamilton was protecting northern business interests at the expense of the South. Hamilton was able to sway Southerners to support his plan by promising them permanent capital would be located in the South. So, in order to get his plan approved, he had to negotiate or compromise with some of the Southerners in order to get what he wanted. So, he gave them moving the capital from New York to the South, and so they were able to help him um, come up with with the rest of the information or the rest of this part of his plan to get it passed through Congress. So that was the assumption of states' debts. So let's go back and let's look at our doodle notes because it asks the federal government. So why would the federal government assume debts? What would it take care of? Let's go back to the reading and we can find this answer in this information right here. It says once the debt was assumed, the federal government would pay for the debt, and then it once the debt was paid, it would help improve the credit of the United States. So once the debt was assumed, the government would pay off the debt and improve its credit. It would be able to improve its credit. Okay, so key idea number one, the federal government would assume state debt. Once the debt was assumed, the government would pay off the debt and improve its credit. Because remember that it needed to improve its credit because no one would lend it money. No one would lend it money. So now let's go back to the reading and look at our key item number two. This part of the plan was to create a national bank. The bank would hold money raised from taxes. The money would be used to make loans to businesses. The government could create paper money that was a common currency, a system of money between all of the different states. And so the Bank of the United States, private investors would own and operate the bank. The federal government would have a safe place to deposit tax revenues. The bank could give inexpensive loans to the government in times of need. And the bank would also have the power to issue paper currency backed by the federal government. Okay, so let's go back to our doodle notes. The government should create a national bank. So, what was the purpose of this national bank? So if we go back to the reading and we look for that information, what was the purpose of it? The bank would hold money raised from taxes. The bank would be used to make loans to businesses. The government could create paper money. So let's say the the bank was needed to support business and the government. It also produced a common currency among all states. Okay, so the bank was needed to support business and the government. It also produced a common currency among all states. So now every state had the same um, money system, not like it did with before, because each state had its own money, and sometimes you couldn't use your Virginia money in Massachusetts. So now the national bank is going to create a common currency amongst all states. So we look at our last key idea for today. It says raise money with an excise tax. So now we're looking at money, looking for information about the excise tax in our reading. So the third part of his plan, the government needed money. This part of the plan was to raise money by taxing items that were not necessary to daily life. The taxing of luxury items such as carriages and whiskey was an excise tax, a tax on a specific good. That's another one of our vocabulary words. So excise tax is a tax on specific goods. Many farmers were against the excise tax because they had to pay taxes to make and sell whiskey from the corn and the wheat they grew. Hamilton also wanted to create protective tariffs, high taxes on imports. And so an excise tax on whiskey, this tax on whiskey was relatively small but angered Western farmers who relied on the sale of whiskey produced from their grain. Money from this tax helped to pay state debts and interest on securities sold. Protective tariffs. Hamilton sought tariffs to protect infant American industries for a short term until he could compete, raise revenue to pay for expenses of government, raise revenue to directly support manufacturing through bounties or subsidies. Both parties supported the idea of a tariff through Southerners, and Westerners in time would support lower ones than sought by Northerners. So because the Northerners had more debt, they would assume more of the protective tariffs to raise more money to pay off that debt. Subsidies to industry didn't pass, but became part of the upcoming American System Plan. All right, so let's go back. So we're looking at what was the purpose of what was the excise tax and why they were charging them? Because the government needed to raise money. The government began to tax luxury items such as whiskey to raise money for the country. And so please make sure you go back and you answer those questions. So this is the end of our lesson for today. So you guys make sure that you go back through the lesson if needed, so that you can fill in your notes just as I filled in mine. Again, we're only working on part one of the notes today. Tomorrow we'll conclude with part two, and you're looking at Hamilton's facing opposition with his plan. All right, guys, make sure you get all of your work done today. The doodle notes should be that first part should be completed. Slides 1 and slides 2. If you need to zoom in, zoom in. I showed you how to zoom in as we were going through the notes today. All right, guys, this is our lesson for today. Have a great day.